Hello everyone, my name is Troy Cobel, and my case study assignment is on Drawing the Line, a school system's duty of care for off-campus safety by Chase Cobel. In this video, I will provide a case summary of the article by Cobel, give the case facts, the legal precedents, compare cases, and give Cobel's conclusion. And in the second part, I will give my commentary on the blurred lines and the additional actions and restrictions that may be required, along with the implications of this precedent-setting case. This case involves NL, a student in 8th grade at Bethel Junior High, and Nicholas Clark, an 18-year-old 12th grade student at Bethel High School. Both students were members of their respective schools' track and field team, who practiced on a shared field linking the two schools together. NL and Clark were introduced by a mutual friend while attending track practice. Clark lied about his age, stating he was 16 rather than 18. The day after meeting, Clark convinced NL to skip track practice and accompany him off campus, where he sexually assaulted her. Following the incident, NL informed a friend what had happened, and once the news of the sexual assault reached the school administration, they contacted police. In July 2008, Clark pled guilty to second-degree rape and failure to register as a sex offender. Clark exhibited sexually inappropriate and violent conduct throughout middle and high school. In 9th grade, he sexually assaulted another student, resulting in a school suspension for the remainder of the school year, a sentencing of 12 months probation, and registration as a level 1 sex offender. Later in 10th grade, Clark sexually assaulted another female on the bus. And in 12th grade, Clark physically assaulted one student, verbally harassed another, yelled obscenities in class, went inside the girls' bathroom, and assaulted two other students on 2 different occasions. In court, NL argued that the school district breached its duty of care by not monitoring Clark. The Superior Court found that the Bethel School District's duty of care did not extend to the harm of NL by Clark because it occurred off school grounds, and as a matter of law, the harm was not reasonably foreseeable. On appeal, the court reviewed Clark's disciplinary records, which showed he had been disciplined more than 78 times and had been suspended on 19 different occasions. The Court of Appeals of Washington found that the district's previous knowledge of Clark's violent propensities made the district liable for the attack by Clark, with Bethel's negligence being the proximate cause of NL's injuries. Cobel points to numerous rulings that contradict the Washington Court of Appeals decision. In particular, the Conception versus the Archdiocese of Miami, where the court deemed that schools had no duty to supervise off-campus, non-school related activities engaged by students during non-school hours. Cobel then goes on to compare the cases with the examples he had provided. In the Davis case, both parties voluntarily left the school grounds, and neither school had physical custody. In the Conception versus the Archdiocese of Miami, the attack happened right outside the school gates. And in BL versus Cato Parish School Board, both schools were aware of past incidents and problems. Cobel concluded that the court's decision sets a new standard for duty of care. Cobel stated that this placed an unreasonable expectation on school districts to extend their efforts to outside of the school's boundaries. Normally, I would concur with Cobel that schools should not be liable for incidents taking place off school property. However, the lines are becoming more blurred. For example, as a middle school administrator, I deal a lot with social media activity that takes place off campus, but eventually makes its way into the school and disrupts the learning environment. We often state that we cannot control what students post online while not at school, but ultimately, if it makes its way into the school, we do have a responsibility to deal with it. This is where the lines can become blurred between off-campus and on-campus behaviors. In addition, if behaviors are ignored by teachers and/or administrators at school and then culminate in an off-site incident, should the school be held liable? Which leads to my next question. What additional actions did Bethel Middle School take in response to Clark's misconducts? For example, in the case of such serious misconducts, I would assume that the school would have a behavior plan in place, which could include the support of services of guidance and social workers. As stated in McKay 2020, the duty to warn and associated liability is a complex legal issue with no clear answer, but school officials and teachers would be as remiss, if not planning for the scenario, as they would for any other reasonable foreseeable crisis. If we look at the Clark case, with all of the past evidence of misconduct, it would be reasonable to assume that he would reoffend. Therefore, it begs the question, did Bethel Junior and Senior High Schools have a plan in place for Clark? If they did not, then the appeals court decision may be warranted. Indeed, according to Pisson 2018, based on the severity, quantity, and disciplinary history of a student, administrators could approve a variety of disciplinary sanctions ranging from oral and written cautions and warnings to more formalized consequences, such as behavioral contracts and/or conduct probation orders. In the Clark case, a more formalized behavior contract was warranted. Another question, why was Clark allowed to participate in extracurricular activities given his violent past? In addition, why was he permitted to practice on a field that was knowingly shared with junior high school track team? In this case, I would argue that the school district was negligent, as knowledge of his misconduct and prior registration as a sex offender should dictate that he be not permitted on that shared track field during a school-sponsored activity. This is a point that separates the cases from the prior examples provided by Cobel. The implications of this case is that the doors have been opened for schools to be held liable for actions of students off school property. This will be difficult for schools with their limited resources. It will be important for schools to have plans in place for students who are frequent offenders. Schools will need to take all necessary precautions to ensure the student body is protected from serious misconducts. In this case, the school should have ensured Clark was not involved in extracurricular activities, and specifically those that would put him in contact with younger students during a school-sponsored event.